Welcome to episode 327 of the Pharmacist's Voice podcast. I am your host, Ohio pharmacist Kim Newlove. The show notes are on thepharmacistvoice.com. This is my annual Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month episode. I've been doing one of these every April since 2022 in honor of my son, Kraig, who has autism. If you would like to check out the other episodes in this series, they're in the show notes. Real quick, I'll list them off for you. They are episodes 273, 213, and 147. I have also listed episode 146 in the show notes because it's my interview with Dr. Christina Madison. She is the public health pharmacist, and she is also raising a son with autism. Her son is in elementary school, I believe, and mine is about to graduate from high school. Unbelievable. It's been a journey, let me tell you. Christina is the breadwinner for her family, but I'm more of the stay at home parent type. So during that episode 146, you can hear a lot of contrast in our conversation. So you'll hear Christina, the breadwinner, and Kim, the stay at home parent. So if you'd like to listen to that interview with Dr. Christina Madison, check out episode 146. Today's episode is meant to help other parents of children with autism, especially my pharmacy people. Now, if you don't listen to the entire episode, please consider sharing it. So if you shut it off right now, you don't want to hear about the Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month episode, please share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you so much. Now that you know that this is not a typical episode, if you are still listening, let me give you some background about me. Just in case you don't know me, again, my name is Kim Newlove and I am an Ohio pharmacist. I graduated from the University of Toledo's College of Pharmacy with my BS Pharm in 2001. I have experience in hospital, retail, compounding, and behavioral health. I am not in clinical practice anymore. I am a full-time caregiver for my son with autism, and I am also a part-time podcast host, author, and voice actor. Think medical narration and audiobooks. To learn more about me, my services, and my happy clients, including my consulting and coaching clients, look at my LinkedIn profile. I've got a link to it in the show notes on thepharmacistvoice.com. All right, just a little more background. At this point in my life, my husband Nathan and I have a 22-year-old son named Kraig. Kraig has autism, and we have a 20-year-old neurotypical son named Derek. If you're not familiar with the term neurotypical, that means he is typically developing and does not have autism. No disabilities at all. And in fact, he's over the teenage phase, so he's kind of getting to be a normal young adult, a lot more responsible. Derek is a college student. Where does he go? He's at the University of Cincinnati. He's in the College of Engineering. And right now, he's actually on his very first co-op in the Cleveland, Ohio area. And then our other son, Kraig, is completing high school next month in May. Can you believe it? You heard that right. My younger son, Derek, graduated high school before my older son, Kraig. We have a very non-traditional situation here in the Newlove family. Kraig has been attending our local high school, Perrysburg High School, in a deferred graduation program. Have you ever heard of one of those? It means his typical peers graduated back in 2022. So 2022, his kids that he grew up with all graduated, and he deferred his graduation until 2025. So he is completing high school next month. According to the law here in Ohio, we live in Northwest Ohio, Kraig has to complete high school or graduate at the age of 22. Kraig is 22. He turned 22 back in February of 2025, and it's time. Truthfully, I think Kraig is ready to move on. I did not think I'd ever be able to say that, but here I am saying it. Kraig actually has not been as happy at school this year as in previous years. I take that as a sign that he's ready to move on, so I say he's ready. But now that Kraig is graduating, the focus of this episode will be on Kraig's transition from school to adult services. That's what happens. You have the transition to adulthood. I know that a number of people outside of the pharmacy profession listen to my annual autism episode. So, this is my opportunity to pass on my personal experience and provide a little bit of mentorship, a little bit of being a big sister, so to speak. I won't dive deep, and I will try to stay out of the weeds. So, this is kind of just an update of sorts. If you are a parent of a child with autism, I hope this helps you. As you can tell, this is highly, highly personal stuff. My husband, Nathan, and I hoped that Kraig would transition from high school to an adult day service program, which is abbreviated ADS for Adult Day Service or Adult Day Service Program. Kraig had a great experience last summer trying an adult day service program, an ADS program. It was an 8-week trial last summer and it went pretty well. Kraig had a 1-to-1 aide. Shout out to Rachel if you're listening. We could not have done that without you. I will not mention the name of the program for privacy's sake. But I must say, here's me reporting back to you, my audience. Unfortunately, that ADS program isn't right for Kraig when he graduates. And that's because Kraig doesn't do well in a small group setting, and that ADS program does not offer 1-to-1 supports. And in any case, I mean, it's not all their fault, the program. Kraig is not 100% interested in the programming that they offer. It's a lot of volunteering, and it's not the kind of volunteering that Kraig enjoys. So, due to lack of interest on Kraig's part and it being a small group setting instead of a 1-to-1 situation, we did not enroll Kraig in that ADS program. We looked at more than a dozen other ADS programs and we couldn't find one that was right for him. Not enrolling Kraig in an ADS program right upon graduation to have a smooth transition was a very difficult decision for us. In fact, we just made that decision last week. It's hard because we invested a lot of time, effort, and hope into that program. Now, our disappointment is not a reflection on that program. We appreciate everybody trying to get Kraig into that program, trying it last year as a summer program instead of an extended school year program or an ESY program last year in 2024. Kraig tried that ADS program. So, without everybody being willing to try, we wouldn't have known that it wasn't right for him. We appreciate the opportunity to try. So, at this time, I guess I should say thank you to that ADS program. Thanks to the 1-on-1 aid. Thanks for the school district for your part in the program, transportation, paying for the program. Thank you to the County Board of Developmental Disabilities for helping Kraig's Medicaid waiver pay for the 1-to-1 aid. I'll tell you, I feel like the stars all lined up in order for us to try that program for Kraig. More people should try adult service programs, ADS programs, the year before they graduate. So if you are listening and you're a parent or a caregiver of a child with autism, consider trying whatever that next step after high school is the summer before they graduate. We're again very grateful for the opportunity that Kraig had to try an ADS program last summer in place of an extended school year program. We're just disappointed in the same way that pro football teams are when they don't get their number one draft pick. Now, at this point, our big problem is that we need to look at our second, third, fourth, and fifth choices and figure out what comes next. We had them all written out on a piece of paper last fall of 2024, and we just have to pick something. And we're trying to make the best choice for Kraig. I'm not going to share what those backup plans are at this point. It's just a little too personal. So instead, what I'm going to do is tell you about some of the things that we have had to do as Kraig's started transitioning from school to adult services. There's a lot of transition that happens, and it's not like they just graduate, they put on that graduation cap, and then boom, you're in adult services. You see it coming. You know they're going to turn 18 or 22 someday. So you start transitioning around, I would say, age 14, 15, or 16. So as time has gone on, some of these things we have set up over time. Some of the things that I'll talk about in this episode will compare the K to 12 experience, meaning the whole entire school system experience from kindergarten to grade 12, comparing that to adult services. So comparing K through 12 to adult services. Sorry if I'm stumbling a little bit here. This is not easy to talk about, but I will try to be really deliberate when I get to that part where I'm comparing the K to 12 experience to the adult services experience. Let's get to the general topics that I think pretty much everybody has to think about, whether you're in Ohio or you've got a kindergartner or what. So here's 8 topics that will help you out. After that, then I'll compare the school to adult services. Now, when Kraig was 16 to 18 years old, somewhere around there, we had to plan for adulthood, and we didn't have to do it alone. We have a county board of developmental disabilities. They do a great job of doing their best to help us. They don't have all the answers. We have to work together. We call it Team Kraig. Kraig has this team of people that includes the school and the County Board of Developmental Disabilities, some private providers, and just this whole team. So, anyways, the following 8 things were important during that, 14, 15, 16-year-old age mark through, becoming 18. Number 1 was deferred graduation from high school. As a team, we had to decide if that was right for Kraig. So back in 2022, Kraig would have actually been, I think, 19 because he started school a year late because he had 3 years of preschool. So as a team, an IEP team, we decided that deferring Kraig's graduation was right for him. Number 2, guardianship. When Kraig was 18, I had to become his legal guardian. That was a whole process. I hired an attorney to help me with that. The attorney did a great job. And back then, when Kraig turned 18, it was the pandemic. It was the year 2021, February 2021, and I had to go before a judge on Zoom and become Kraig's guardian. And I must say, it's a very serious, I don't want to call it a ceremony, but a very serious chat with a judge where I had to become his guardian. It reminded me so much of getting married, where you are asked to assume a very, very serious responsibility and basically not screw it up. I shouldn't say that, but I'm going to leave that in. So, anyways, number 2, guardianship. Number 3, during that transition to adulthood time, you should be thinking about Medicaid. If you are a parent of a child with autism and your child will someday need medical coverage or adult services that you cannot afford, you may need Medicaid. When my son was 2.5 years old, almost 3, I applied for Medicaid. It took more than 13 years to get Medicaid, and thank God it kicked in right before he needed his wisdom teeth out, because that would have cost us like $50,000 out of pocket. He had to go full blown under general anesthesia at a hospital in order to get his wisdom teeth removed. So we have had Medicaid for Kraig since he was about 15 and a half, 16 years old. If you have not applied for Medicaid in your state, I highly recommend you do it now, because someday you may need it to pay for adult services. Number 4 is applying for Supplemental Security Income, otherwise known as SSI. It's kind of like Social Security disability income for disabled people, but Kraig was never able to work. Now, this is the money that he'll have to live off for the rest of his life, assuming my husband and I, God forbid we're going to pass away someday, but once we pass away, this will be his only income because he's a permanently disabled person who has really never been employed, and he has been determined to be basically unemployable by the OOD agency here in Ohio, Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities. Kraig's kind of unemployable. Hate to say it that way, but that's his situation. If you have a child with a disability and they are approaching 18, you can apply for SSI, I believe, the month after they turn 18. I ended up hiring a consultant to help me apply, and we were able to get him benefits within 90 days. Number 5 is the County Board of Developmental Disabilities. Craig essentially has a social worker and a transition specialist. The transition specialist has been helping Craig as he's gone through this transition to adulthood. They tell us about all the things we should be looking out for so we don't have to do it alone. They're also part of his IEP team. Now, once Craig finds something that he can transition into as an adult, the transition specialist kind of leaves the picture, so to speak. But that day has not come, so Craig still has a transition specialist. If you are a parent of a child with a disability and you are connected to your county board of developmental disabilities and your child is 14, 15, 16 years old, you should make sure that your child has a transition specialist. Number 6 on my list is OOD. That's Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities. The website, if you live in Ohio, is ood.ohio.gov/home. Now, what they do is they give employment opportunities to individuals with disabilities. So they get to try a job with a job coach before they go out into the world. It's a really easy transition, so you get to have that support of having a job coach. Now, I'm not going to speak for them, I do not work for them. But what you need to do is once you get into that transition age, that 14, 15, 16 years old, make sure that you get connected with your local job office for people with disabilities. This is a great opportunity, but also you will find out things. You will find out if your child is what I call employable. Do they have the ability to work with a job coach? Can they work with instruction? Are they trainable? Do they do a good job? Are they independent in the way that is necessary to work? Now, my son is not independent in the way that is necessary to work. He does not respond well to a job coach, and I don't want to throw him under the bus, so I'm going to stop there. But for a lot of reasons, working was not an option for Craig. If you have a child with a disability, get connected with Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities. I'll have a link to their website in the show notes on thepharmacistvoice.com. Number 7 is healthcare. This one is very straightforward. I am a pharmacist. If you are listening to this, there's a good possibility you might be a pharmacy person as well. So it's easy to understand that we're going to go from pediatrics to adult providers. You are going to need to find, instead of a pediatric ophthalmologist, you need an adult eye doctor. Instead of having a pediatric dentist, you will go to an adult dentist. So there's all these things that you have to set up. And let me tell you, if you do it all at once, it is overwhelming. The first thing to go for us was the dentist. They discharged Craig due to age at age 18. I think it might have been 18 and a half. Why is this important? Well, when you get to be an adult, you have possibly adult problems, and they need the equipment for adult sized mouths. So Craig transitioned from a pediatric dentist to an adult dentist, and it did take us a while, but we have a really great dentist. We really like him. We're very grateful to have found him. We also transitioned from the pediatric eye doctor to the adult eye doctor. And we also have a primary care provider who is currently a pediatrician, but we are transitioning this summer at the age of 22 to an adult primary care provider, a nurse practitioner, actually. And it's a man. So that'll be nice. I think sometimes Craig likes to have men in his life. As a young person, a lot of Craig's providers were women. I'll just say one more thing about healthcare professionals, and that is speech therapy. Craig has always had speech therapists in his life ever since he was 2 years old. He's 22. My son, Craig, I love him to death, but he can't read, write, or speak. Not that I know of. If he's been talking to you, please let me know. I'd love to hear his voice. But Craig is a nonverbal person with autism, and he uses a communication device. Therefore, it's very important to us that somebody continues to challenge him and be a resource for us as parents. So we are having a heck of a time transitioning from the school to a private speech therapist. Craig used to have one, but he closed his practice, and now we're on our own, and it's kind of hard. We are still trying to find the right speech therapist for him. More on that in a little bit. And the last thing on my list, number 8, is legacy planning. Now, legacy planning to me means making plans for it just in case you, as a parent, pass away. This is not a happy topic, and I'm not going to go on and on about it, but I must say that when you are transitioning your child from school to adult services, make sure you keep legacy planning in mind. We started planning for our deaths back when our son was, let's see, 5 years old in 2008. And it's not that hard. You hire an attorney, a special needs attorney, and they will walk you through it. The difficult thing that I've found out is that when your attorney dies suddenly, which ours did, they can be kind of hard to replace. I interviewed 3 and hired 1, and we got lucky. We've got a really great attorney now, and we're hoping to spend 20 years or more with him. His name's Richard. Thank you very much, Richard. Just a little behind the scenes. I had to go pick up my son Kraig at school, and then I spent all day with him. My husband was working late, so it's 9 o'clock at night, and I am now finishing this recording. So far, we have talked about deferred graduation from high school, guardianship, Medicaid, applying for Medicaid, supplemental security income, otherwise known as SSI, the County Board of Developmental Disabilities, who provides a social worker and a transition specialist. We talked about OOD, opportunities for Ohioans with disabilities. If you live outside of Ohio, you may have an equivalent in your state. I should have mentioned that earlier. We also talked about healthcare, transitioning from the pediatric providers to the adult providers. And we talked about legacy planning last. Those were my 8 things, 8 topics that I wanted to tell you about. And now, what I'm going to do is compare some school topics to adult service topics. It looks like I have 9 things on my list, so I'll go through them from top to bottom here. And again, this will kind of compare what you may recognize from your K through 12 or preschool through 12 experience to adult services, which you don't know about yet. So hopefully, some of this will make sense based on what you already know. I'm going to preface all of this with a comment that in school, parents get to work with the teachers to decide what the kids learn. It's called an individualized education plan or an IEP. But as an adult, things are a little bit different. It kind of changes. The table is turned. The kid gets to kind of determine their own fate. I hope that makes sense. At this point, we need to help Kraig enjoy his life. We need to do things that are important to him and important for him, and he needs to be more in control of his choices. It's kind of tough though, because I have a life too, and so does my husband. So there's always this question of like, who's going to help him live his best life? I don't know. But with neurotypical kids, what do? You push them out of the nest. They learn a trade, or they go to college, or they get a job, or they join the military. And neurotypical kids, they don't have as much scrutiny from parents, I guess you could say. So, like with my son Derek, he's trying to separate himself from us and become his own man. But with a person with a disability, it's just a little bit different. All right, here we go. First up, number 1, trading the IEP for an Ohio ISP. So, in the state of Ohio, we have the individualized education plan in the school. But when you transition to adult services, the comparison for me, in my mind, is the Ohio ISP, the Individualized Service Plan. Now, kiddos that are connected to their County Board of Developmental Disabilities in Ohio have an individual service plan, and that helps somebody live their best life. But of course, we as parents are helping our kids that are still in school in a way that, complements the IEP. There's no IEP after they graduate, so it's all the Ohio ISP. I hope that makes sense. So in school, we picked those IEP goals with the Team Kraig, the school teachers, the County Board of Developmental Disabilities, all of the team. We used to pick the goals, but then now that Kraig is graduating, we'll have to work with the board to create an ISP that helps Kraig live his best life. We have not created an ISP without, the school being part of it, part of the plan. But in my mind, in Ohio, we are trading the IEP for the ISP. Either way, we need to take into account Kraig's strengths, preferences, interests, and needs. He has a lot of strengths. He's a pretty easygoing guy. He likes music, car rides, leisure activities. I'm not saying he's lazy, but he knows that it's a lot more fun to go for a car ride and a walk than it is to work and do chores. He may not be, going to college, but he knows what's fun in life. He knows what he likes. He has preferences, meaning, he prefers to empty the dishwasher as opposed to mowing the grass. He has preferences with things that he likes to do, even with his chores that he does at home. He has interests. He likes to be read to. He likes to go for walks. He will sit in a kayak and let me paddle him down the Maumee River here in Northwest Ohio, which is really cool. What else does he like to do? He likes to go grocery shopping and push the cart. He likes to do delivery tasks where he picks things up like library books and drops them off. There's all kinds of things that he has as strengths and preferences and interests, but he also has needs. And so whether it's an IEP or an ISP, we are taking into account Kraig's needs. Like he needs people to help him, whether it's hygiene, communication, daily schedule, transportation. Kraig has needs. Number 2 on my list is motivation. Think about school. What do kids want? They want an A. They want to get an A on their report card. Now, Kraig in school has motivation to get on that school bus in the morning and go to school and see his teacher and his paraprofessionals or aides, whatever you want to call them, and his speech therapist, his occupational therapist, his all the secretaries at the school. Kraig has his favorite things that he likes to do. He's motivated to go to school. But what happens when there's graduation and all that familiar stuff, all those routines are taken away? I don't know what's going to happen to his motivation. I don't know if he'll be motivated to get out of bed every day. We're going to have to create some sort of a schedule so that he feels motivated to get up in the morning and go about his day. He needs to tell us what's important to him somehow, even though he's nonverbal. And we kind of know him, so we better know him. We've known him for 22 years. We know what his strengths, preferences, interests, and needs are. So we're going to have to get creative and maybe create a calendar of events and a new routine and a new schedule that he will adapt to and hopefully enjoy. We will definitely make sure he's working towards independence, taking steps to independence as we move forward after graduation. I hope this is helping you kind of think about if you have a child with autism or a disability and they might be graduating, these are some of the things that you have to think of. Trading the IEP for the individual service plan, motivation to go to school versus motivation to do whatever the new routine is. Number 3 on my list here, 3 out of 9, is behavior. In school, Kraig has a behavior intervention plan. And when he leaves the school, we will have to do more of what we already do. We'll have to avoid triggers, meet his sensory needs, and work with maybe the behavior person at the County Board of DD to help with behavior issues. We felt very supported at the school. We felt like they really understood him. He's still there, so they still understand him as he finishes up here. But as we move forward, the behavior piece is going to be different. For example, Kraig hates babies crying. There are not many babies crying in the school, so he has fewer behaviors because there's less triggers, meaning less babies crying at school, right? But when we get out into the community and he's doing things that he enjoys, like going to the library, you better believe there's going to be crying babies there. So we're going to have to recognize his triggers and help him avoid them or deal with them. Leaving school and getting into the real world full time will be a change. School's kind of like a protective bubble. There's a lot of things that you don't have to deal with in school that you do have to deal with when you live in the real world full time. Number 4 on my list is home. Craig currently lives at home, but where will he live when he leaves school? Great question. We had always planned on Craig living at home for a year or two until he settled into an ADS program. We wanted to be that safe place, that familiar place for him as he settles into an ADS program. Now that we're not going that route, Craig will just continuously live at home until we can figure something else out. We don't know if we might need to put him in a waiver home, an ICF facility, or some other community living situation. I fantasize about buying a house somewhere in my town where he lives with support people. And maybe there's another person with a disability that also lives in that community living situation and pays me rent. I don't know. I'm not trying to monetize my son's living situation, so I shouldn't say that. But I'm going to keep this in because you know what? There's probably other parents who think this. Wouldn't it be nice if I could afford a second house where my son could live and work on his independent skills and be supported by skilled caregivers who are paid for by his Medicaid waiver? There, I said it. That's kind of like my ideal situation for Craig. Sometimes I wonder if he still wants to live at home. Maybe he doesn't, but he doesn't have a way to express it. So there are other options other than living at home. I just wanted to mention the waiver homes, the ICF facilities, and other kind of custom community living situations like buying a house. There's other stuff out there. You may not be aware of it because you might be in the K through 12 space and your kiddo lives at home where the bus pulls up every day and your kiddo goes off to school. But once they complete school, then home could look different. Number 5 on my list is transportation. I kind of already hinted at this in the K through 12 space. Transportation is the school bus, right? In the school system, my son rides a bus. As an adult, if he wants to go to services, I know we're not doing an ADS program, but if we did, there would be transportation in that picture. Somebody from the ADS program would pick him up at our house, much like he gets on a bus and goes to the school, and that transportation would take him to his ADS program, and then take him home afterwards. I do not know what Craig's going to end up doing here, so it's kind of looking like I will be his transportation. Number 6 on my list is teachers. In the school system, Craig has teachers. With adult services, Craig will have me, my husband, our family members, and caregivers. Now, instead of an ADS program, we may have to go with agency providers, agencies who provide caregivers. What I would really like to do is hire either a special ed teacher or somebody who wants to be a full time professional, independent caregiver. I don't know what we're going to end up doing, but that is part of our plan B, C, D, or E. Who knows what we're going to end up doing? Next year's Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month episode is going to look very different from this one. You will get to hear what we went through in year 1 after graduation. Again, number 6 is teachers. We're going to exchange teachers for caregivers. Number 7 on my list here is physical activity. In the school, we had adapted physical education for our special needs kiddo, Craig. When it comes to adult services, Craig will be like the rest of us. It's kind of like when kids, typical kids, leave high school and they're no longer in track or wrestling or baseball or cross country or whatever their sport was. You got to find leisure activities to, you know, keep your health in check. You got to stay physically active, right? So Craig will find leisure activities that he likes. We already do a lot of stuff with him, and we will continue that. 2 things that Craig really likes to do right now is walking at parks and riding his bike. Number 8 on my list is speech therapy. In the school system, Craig has had speech therapists from K through 12. He's had wonderful speech therapists. They're all very dedicated individuals who are happy and excited to work with school aged children. Shout out to Amanda. You have done a great job with Craig. Amanda is a school speech therapist, though, so there's no chance, really, unless she goes into private practice, of Craig having the continuity of that school speech therapist in his private life. Craig used to have a private speech therapist. His name was Ryan. Shout out to Ryan. Ryan was awesome, but he closed his practice last year, and I am finding him difficult to replace. I have contacted and interviewed 10 potential replacements, but I have not found an appropriate replacement yet. And I say appropriate because Craig uses a communication device called an Accent 1000, and it's made by the Prentke Romich Company. I am finding it very difficult to find somebody who knows that device and can challenge Craig to use it. I'm not giving up, but I am finding it difficult. So again, in the K through 12 space, the school provides speech therapy, and you don't have to go out and find an appropriate person yourself. So we're going to really miss that because in the post graduation phase, it's all about the private speech therapist. We have hired them over the years, and I'm confident eventually we'll find one. It's just different. One last thing that I want to say about communication. Craig understands some American Sign Language. I took some sign language classes with Dr. Ashley Walker. She's a pharmacist and she's been on my podcast twice. I don't remember the episode numbers, but Ashley Walker, PharmD, is her name. And I realized after showing Craig what I learned that he really understood what I was saying better when I paired it with sign language. So I'm interested in enrolling myself and Craig in an American Sign Language class at a local community college. I think he might actually do well with that, even if he's just a witness and he sits there. I'm looking forward to that. More on that next year. Number 9 on my list is occupational therapy. Craig got occupational therapy all throughout school from K through 12, and he made a lot of progress because of it. Now, as an adult, occupational therapy will probably look like the activities of daily living. He will be challenged to use his hands and manipulate objects and learn how to do things through activities of daily living, chores, all of the things that he will do throughout his life. So it's bittersweet. You get this wonderful service through the schools. You see your child make all this progress, and then just because they graduate, it kind of stops. It's not really paid for by, the commercial insurance and certainly not Medicaid unless there's a qualifying need. And for him, it's not so much. Therefore, we have to say goodbye to occupational therapy. Just wanted to bring that to your attention in case you have a kiddo who's in the school system and going to graduate someday. If you need them to get private OT, go ahead and plan ahead. That was the end of my list. There is so much more that I could talk about, comparing like all that elementary school stuff, like all those specials that kids go to when they're in elementary school, library, art, gym, music, all of that goes away once they graduate. It's up to you as a parent or the caregivers or whatever ADS program you choose to involve your child in that sort of thing. So if I want my son to see art, I will make it a point to go to the Toledo Museum of Art or go to an art show locally. If I want Craig to listen to music, we'll be going to church. We'll hear that every Sunday, of course, or we'll turn on the radio. But if I want him to make music, well, I think we might have to give up on that because I'm not planning to take him to music class. I will, however, take him to hear performances. There are local churches that have choirs or musicians come in. There's no reason I can't help him include that in his life. And we can still go to the library and we can still do active things, going to the gym. Sure, instead of gym class K through 12, we can go to the gym, the local YMCA. We can take bike rides, we can go for walks. There's all kinds of things, but we're going to have to get creative because it's not going to be in that, 8:30 to 3:30, 8:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. school day. Life is different when you're out of school. I hope all that gives you an idea of some of the activities and terminology involved in transitioning from school to adult services. There's a lot to know, as you can tell, and hey, I'm still learning. Craig's last day of school is coming up next month, Friday, May 16th, 2025. He graduates at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I'm going to be crying tears of joy and pride, I'm sure. When I publish my spring update next month in May 2025, I hope to know more about Craig's future. I'll share what I can. If you are the parent or the caregiver for a child with autism whose grades kindergarten through 12th here in the United States, I really hope that this episode has helped you. I wanted to give you a peek into some of the things that we've gone through and when we've gone through them, and kind of give you a heads up. Do the big sister thing. It may not be what you go through. What you go through may not be what I went through. But I believe that it really can be helpful for you to take a peek into my life, if for nothing else, so you can compare your life to mine. Maybe there are some things that you have opportunities to do, and you're trying to decide between two opportunities. Maybe you will make a different choice than I made because you have heard about what we did. For anybody who has a child who's age 22 or older in Ohio or in the United States, I would love to know what you have done if your child is 22 or older in Ohio or in the United States. I want to hear what has worked for you. I would love for you to message me through the contact form on my website, which is thepharmacist'svoice.com. There's an S there, thepharmacist'svoice.com. For anybody who has not listened to this podcast before, I know that my website can be tricky. It is thepharmacist'svoice.com. But I also do own the domain thepharmacist, singular voice.com, thepharmacist'svoice.com. So it'll get forwarded to my real website. Hit the contact tab, send me a message, let me know what has worked for your kiddo. And that's it. That's all I have for you today. Thank you very much for listening to the Pharmacist's Voice podcast, episode 327. To find the show notes, go to thepharmacist'svoice.com, click the podcast tab, and then find episode 327. In the show notes today, you will find links to the other episodes in this Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month series, my social media links, and more. There's always a lot of links. Go ahead and check those out in the show notes on thepharmacist'svoice.com. If you know someone who has a child with autism, please share this episode with them. And if you like this podcast, subscribe to or follow the Pharmacist's Voice podcast on your favorite podcast player and YouTube to get each new episode right when it comes out. Thank you very much for listening today. I'll talk to you next week.